If there is one driver that we're eager to see more constantly in F1, that surely is Nyck de Vries. The 27-year-old Dutchman has had an amazing debut in the worst performing team on the grid, as he managed to score his first career points in the first career race, finishing P9 in Monza. On top of that, he managed to spend more time in the top 10 in the race compared to Latifi, who is in his third year on the grid. However, de Vries has been linked to a much more attractive market than Williams, and that is Alpine. If you want to find out more about this, stick around with us until the end of this video. Nyck has participated in the Monza GP weekend with two different teams. During FP1, he drove for Aston Martin, while in FP3 and the rest of the weekend, he was a substitution for Albon, who had to undergo a surgical procedure due to appendicitis. And de Vries took this personally, as he never had a chance to prove himself in the sport prior to this. With that being said, de Vries managed to finish P12 and enter Q2 on Saturday's qualifying session, but started P8 due to 4 drivers ahead of him taking engine penalties and lining up at the back of the grid. De Vries was only passed by Hamilton, Sainz and Perez, but managed to keep his spot thanks to the retirements of Ricciardo and Alonso. On top of that, the youngster was attacking the AlphaTauri of Gasly on multiple occasions, but failed to pass him and had an amazing defensive drive against the Alfa Romeo of Zhou. It's very impressive that a driver could do this in his first career race, and de Vries spoke about it after the race, saying, "I didn't really have much time to think because everything was so rushed. I had a very bad sleep. It went from excitement into nerves, and I didn't dare even look into my sleep tracking because basically I spent the whole night awake. But perhaps it helped me. I couldn't think, and I just had to get on with the job. My start wasn't great, but it was enough to maintain position, and I think it was key for me to get into a rhythm in the beginning and not lose position, because then your tires are dirty and you're always on the back foot. That is why I was really happy with our strategy and how we managed that. And actually the pace was really good, the car was great, and we made a small adjustment from stint 1 to stint 2. I asked a lot of help from the team to use the tools in the car to influence the balance. Again, I know that we had a little bit of help from outside with grid penalties and all that, but hey, no one takes these points away from us," said de Vries. De Vries also spoke about Verstappen and other drivers, giving him hope and support for the race, saying that his fellow countryman was really supportive of him and we could have seen both of them hugging after the race. He was kind. We had some messaging last night, even this morning. Lewis congratulated me. They've all been very supportive and very kind. Max just came to me and said, "It's going to be fine. It's good to be good. You will be fine. Just have a good start and get through." So I appreciate the support, and also very thankful to all the fans who voted me as driver of the day, finished de Vries. But why does Alpine need a driver like de Vries? Didn't they emerge in talks with Gasly? Yes, they did, but Gasly's seat in Alpine is dependent on one thing, and that is the granting of a super license to Colton Herta from the FIA. If they decide to not circumvent their own rules and grant the young American the super license, then Alpine would have to look in another direction for a driver, which would most likely be de Vries. The Dutchman has proven that he's made out of F1 material, and scoring points in his first race isn't something that's been done by a variety of drivers. On top of that, de Vries drove for the worst performing team on the grid, Williams, and by scoring 2 points for them, he is now accountable for 33% of the team's points, as Williams is still P10 with 6 points. If he can do that in Williams, imagine what he can do in Alpine. According to Toto Wolff, de Vries' experience isn't anything that is surprising him, and he knew that the Dutchman was able to perform this way, as he added, "I think what else should he do in terms of performance than what he has shown today? No training, he jumped in a car that he hadn't driven straight into FP3. Yeah, it showed that he's capable of doing that," finished Wolff. De Vries was full of praise for everyone that helped him after the race, saying, de Vries explained his race and saying that he couldn't have dreamt for a better one. "The whole experience from yesterday until now has just been a dream. Jumping on a car on the drivers' parade and seeing all the excitement for Formula 1, getting the opportunity to race, starting in the top 10, executing a good race, scoring points debut, being called driver of the day. It's been amazing. We live in a competitive industry, so you're as good as your last race and you're always expected to perform. Luckily, I did that this weekend and I grabbed this opportunity with both hands," finished de Vries. However, there is one huge question that needs to be answered, and that is whether Colton Herta will be granted the super license. That is something that will directly affect de Vries' future in Alpine, and something that will surely shift the momentum when it comes to breeding talents for F1. According to Christian Horner, the only driver that would replace Gasly is Herta, and if Herta doesn't get a super license, they wouldn't let Gasly go because he's doing a good and a solid job in AlphaTauri. I think he's an exciting talent. He's a young American that's been a standout talent in the US, so it'll be very interesting to see how he performs in F1. And F1 is growing in popularity in the US market at the moment, and to have a successful US driver could be very interesting. It could be interesting for us in the longer term. I mean, we've got contact with our existing drivers, but AlphaTauri or Toro Rosso, they've produced a great stable of drivers for us to draw upon, whether it be Sebastian or Max or Daniel over the years. I think Pierre is doing a good job within the AlphaTauri, so I don't think there will be a desire to change if there wasn't an interesting option available, said Horner. Apart from some team bosses like Vazier, Steiner and Wolf, Nyck de Vries is also mad if Herta will be granted the super license the way it's supposed to be granted. There is a rule called force majeure, and that could allow Herta to get his super license if he has at least 30 out of the 40 required points, thanks to circumstances that are out of his power, such as the Indy Light not having enough races to qualify enough for super license points. But Nyck does believe that the FIA will do the right decision and has pointed out that the American drivers will be more than motivated to visit F3 and F2 and gather experience there if that is what the FIA does with the current IndyCar 500 driver. I trust in the governing body. I think rules are there to be respected. There are plenty of other drivers in the market that have super license points. The necessity is not necessarily that high to go and give someone dispensation to get a super license. Plus, in my own opinion, it would give an incorrect precedent and example to the Formula 2 and Formula 3 championships, said Nyck. The knock-on effect would be much greater than just giving dispensation. First, because there would be many more knocking on the door for a certain request. Secondly, you could argue that people going from Formula 4 to Formula 3 could decide to escape to the US because in Indy Lights you only have 12 cars on the grid and it's much easier to score points, and then you could come back. Then you almost kill and jeopardize the ladder we've been building over the years, which now is so nice. I compare our platform to what we see in MotoGP 3 and 2. There is a ladder, a clear path to Formula 1, so it would be a shame if we jeopardize our system, and I also think it's unnecessary, finished Nyck. Apart from this, Nyck spoke about his future, saying that he doesn't have much left to prove. And keep in mind that he said this prior to his race debut in Monza. Now that he was able to score 2 points on his debut, rest assured that he'll be more than a wanted seat on the grid. It's very demotivating to see Hülkenberg receiving his 100th chance in F1 or the FIA giving super license to guys that haven't earned it, while drivers like de Vries are sitting on the sidelines and are competing in Formula E or not even competing at all, waiting for their chance in F1 and being signed as reserve drivers. I wouldn't build my future on solely hope and on the volatility of this paddock, but at the same time, it's a dream I'd like to fulfill, and I also think I deserve an opportunity, so I will be judging the opportunities carefully in the upcoming time and decide what is ultimately best for my career. I don't have a management, not really officially as such, but time will tell. I don't know, it's out of my hands, it's not in my control. Obviously, it's a dream, and I think I would deserve a chance, but ultimately it's not up to me to decide driver lineup, finished Nyck. I mean, I don't have to sell myself. I've won certain things. I've been given the opportunity to participate in some of the FP1s. I deserve a chance. But it's not always just about what you've shown and what you've done. You need a bit of momentum. The timings need to be right. There needs to be a place. It's just purely based on what you've done in the past. Finished de Vries. Apart from him, Alpine is considering another driver in mind, and that is Jack Doohan. The young Australian driver has been linked to an F1 debut as he is having an amazing season F2 and is currently signed under Alpine's academy. However, it's unlikely that Alpine will give Doohan a chance to race in F1 immediately in Alpine since he does lack experience. According to reports, Alpine will look forward to placing Doohan in another team in order to secure some experience, the same pattern they wanted to apply to Piastri. However, they'll have to be careful in order for this thing to not backfire on them as badly as it did with Piastri. What do you think is next for de Vries regarding his tenure in Alpine? Do you think that he has a legitimate chance to sit in the Enstone-based team from 2023 and beyond? Let us know in the comments below.